Another day, another spring training game to go over. Some more really good pitching from this team this week. We're going to go over that. We are also going to player preview some pitching as well in Sawyer Gipson-Long. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, March 14th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Welcome. Happy Thursday, everybody. Hope everyone's week is going well. The Tigers played another spring training game on Wednesday. Wednesday also, March 13th. Happy 313 day, everybody, to all of the Detroiters and the like. So we are going to talk about that spring training game, obviously. As I said, some more really good pitching to talk about. Jack Flaherty specifically, I think, looked the best that he's probably looked since putting on an Old English D jersey. So we're going to talk about that. The offense stays quiet relatively for the second game in a row. We may go over, some performances there. We're going to quickly just bring up the fact that Miguel Cabrera is in camp. Kind of cool to see Miggy back around all the guys. And then we're going to end by player previewing Sawyer Gipson-Long, which is really not a ton. All right. There's not a ton to break down there because he was so good last year, but I do want to talk about his repertoire, what I think he can improve on down in AAA, where he will inevitably start the season, et cetera, and when we can expect him, because I can almost assure you he will be pitching in Detroit at some point this year as well. So welcome in, everybody. Hope welcome in 2-3 minutes into the show. It's okay. Hope you're all having a fantastic week, though, for real. Beautiful weather so far. I think today, as you're listening to this, Thursday, it's actually supposed to rain in the Metro Detroit area, so kind of sucks. But it's been a really, really beautiful week here in the Motor City. So let's talk about this baseball game finally, for real this time, after I've said that about 6 times now. 4-1 loss at the hands of the Phillies. And look, the Phillies threw out what very well could be their opening day lineup. Maybe a couple of changes to the lineup, maybe. Yeah, probably one or two, maybe, but like pretty darn close to the opening day lineup and one of their 2 best pitchers and maybe all of their best relievers. So they really threw the kitchen sink at the Detroit Tigers, and the Tigers matched up with a lot, again, probably a few pieces off, but a lot of their opening day starters and on the offensive side of things. And then, as I said in the beginning, Flaherty was the starter in this game. We'll start with him. 4 innings, 1 hit, no earned runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts. Really, really solid performance. I thought he was mixing pitches really well. The biggest thing has been and will continue to be for Jack Flaherty is just how consistently can you get velocity, really, I guess is what it kind of boils down to, but just effectiveness out of his fastball. This is a guy who, when he was at his best, had really, really, really good fastball metrics. And over the last couple of years, those have kind of dwindled. The fastball has become less and less effective, and he's lost a little bit of velo on it over the years. And so seeing him, it wasn't a consistent 95, but he didn't have an issue touching 95. You know what I'm saying? Like he did. There's a couple of 93s thrown in there, a little bit sporadic when it came to velo, but he had no, like when you saw 95 on the gun, you weren't like, oh, that's a surprise for this outing either, right? Like he was hitting it relatively often at the same time. I thought the secondary stuff was good. He was able to pair the breaking ball with it really well. And that's, again, when he has been at his best in his career. That is one of the biggest reasons why. So, 1 base runner in 4 innings with 5 strikeouts. But 1 total base runner. We will gladly take that against, it really was the Phillies just sans Schwarber. Like that was kind of, I guess there maybe there's a couple of other things you can move around, I guess. But it was really, really close to the lineup that the Phillies are going to roll out there this year. And he looked really good. So two thumbs up. The next step for him is just consistently getting that. If we see him look like this, just in terms of stuff, not just box score. Like, obviously, if we see him put up one base runner in every outing, that's going to be a good year. But if we see the stuff look like this consistently going forward, I think that a lot of people, myself included, are probably going to be decently optimistic about what they could get out of him. But the big question mark is, can he consistently do that? Because he hasn't been able to in a few seasons now. And it's a pretty, but he's still relatively young too. That's the big thing, right? He's not even 30. So we'll see. I'm just kind of talking in circles at this point, but we'll see. Good performance. Really, really good outing from Jack Flaherty. Stuff was good. Fastball was good. Joey Wentz was first out of the pen. 2 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 earned run, no walks, 3 strikeouts. The 1 home run, or the 1 hit against, rather, was a solo home run off of Whit Merrifield, who it's miraculous to me that no matter what the situation, whether it's the World Series or a random Tuesday in August or spring training, Whit Merrifield owns us. He is the owner of this franchise. It's not Chris Ilitch. It's Whit Merrifield, and it has been for his entire career. And it drives me absolutely bonkers, dog. Like and I'm not trying to be like disrespectful and be like, but it's just like he's not as good as he is against the Tigers against every other team, or else he'd be in Cooperstown, right? He would be a future Hall of Famer. Like he's a solid ball player. He's a guy that we even talked about this winter, the potential for the Tigers to bring in. I think he's a valuable asset to a team. He's a good player. He's been a well above average player for a majority of his career. Definitely zero disrespect intended. But can you please just take a deep breath and calm down when you play the Detroit Tigers? Just take a chill pill, man. Like, take a breather. It's okay. Okay. You don't have to do this every single time. I promise it's okay to just like take a day off or take a series off sometimes. It'll all be okay. All right. It's miraculous to me how good he is against the Tigers his entire career. Anyway, Whit Merrifield conversation over. I thought that outside of the home run to Merrifield, and I didn't even think the Merrifield home run was really like some brutally awful pitch. He missed a little bit, but I think it was like the worst thing I've ever seen, certainly when compared to what we saw from Wentz a lot last season. But I mean, outside of that, and it's, I understand outside of the home run, I get the optics of that, but 3 strikeouts in 2 innings, and that was the only hit it was the only base runner he gave up. I really think that Wentz, he's got a 2 ERA in spring. The fastball is playing up a little bit. I think they like the secondary stuff, and I think they really like the optics of having another lefty in the pen, so that all of the left-handed responsibility isn't on Holton and Chafin every single outing, right? Because then you're kind of in a position where, okay, like if I really want a lefty, sometimes I'll go with Holton and sometimes I'll go with Chafin, and you're not, it's all one or all the other. You're not probably going to use both of them in the same outing. So having kind of that third lefty in there that also could go multiple innings, I think that Wentz is, if the season started tomorrow, I would predict Joey Wentz to make the opening day roster, especially being that he is out of options, which we've covered multiple times here on the show. So let's keep the ball rolling. Got to talk about Tyler Holton, Will Vest, the 2 pitchers that, actually Tyler Holton I think looked pretty good. Will Vest struggled a little bit. We'll talk a split second about the offense. Not a whole lot to go over there. And then we will talk, player preview, Miguel Cabrera, etc. All right, we'll do all of that right after this. Amazon Fire TV, our new friends. Look, Fire TV is your destination for sports, for live games, and highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV and provides you access to millions of movies and television episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. And Fire TV also recently created the Fire TV Channels app to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On, first and foremost, and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep you up to date on the world of sports. March Madness right around the corner, NBA, very, very thick of a very competitive time in the NBA season. MLB, obviously, right around the corner, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well. So check out Fire TV channels and the Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out, rather, the Fire TV channels app, you should. Trust me, www.amazon.com/locked on Fire TV. Also got to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. Look, say goodbye to busted brackets, all right? Because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney, whether you're betting on the big upset or the 1 seed. It's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked on and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will be back tomorrow talking about more spring training baseball, continuing our player preview series. We only have a few players left, and then we'll kind of be full on into regular season mode here right around the corner. I don't know how I'm going to make it, genuinely. Also, as you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. And baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. That's March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Be the first to get local insight from the MLB local experts of Locked On Podcast Network. Again, March 20th. 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Really fun. We just did the AL Central preview recently. A lot of good stuff over there. Great conversation. We have a lot of good hosts in the American League Central, even though the division itself may not be too strong on the field. Behind the camera here, we have a pretty good group of guys. So, let's talk again a little bit more about this ball game. The only other thing I really want to add, Tyler Holton, I think, looks really good. Gave up a couple of hits, but I thought the stuff was playing really well. And that, like, Cody Clemens one, that one really stings because that's lefty. But besides that, I thought he looked pretty solid, and I think that he's going to be another effective piece out of the bullpen, especially again as a lefty specialist this upcoming season. So really cool. Will Vest also pitched in this game, kind of struggled a little bit, just hung his slider left and right in this one. Kind of struggled in that regard. But again, spring training outing, we will, again, Will Vest we already did his player preview, been really good in the regular season for this team the last couple of years. So we will give him the benefit of the doubt there as well. Offensively, 1 run for the second game in a row. Look, optically not awesome. I would tell you all, again, as I've reiterated a million times, it's spring training. Don't be so results oriented in spring. But Nola looked really good. And I think that paired with the fact that they went to all of their best relievers as well. You had Dominguez and obviously Gregory Soto, old friend alert. They really went through, Nola, and then obviously, like I said, Dominguez, Soto. So tough to get too many hits off of that, no matter what the situation, that trio there, especially in spring training. Not going to be too terribly upset about it. I actually thought they worked the count against Nola decently well, for whatever that's worth, in a spring training game. Matt Vierling was the 1 run, cranked a solo shot to dead center. I'm really kind of, same thing goes with the good and the bad, right? It's spring training, but I like the tweaks to the mechanics that Vierling has had in spring training so far. I need to see a lot more before I am, deeming it a successful change and that he's going to start pulling the ball a lot more. But for whatever it is worth, I do think that His numbers aren't very good in spring. He's batting like a buck 70 or a buck 60. So it hasn't translated to results yet. But again, spring, etc. Broken record. But I do like the optics of it, at least. I think the hands are a little bit quicker and are more direct to the ball in spring training so far. So we'll see if that stands. Outside of that, again, not terribly much. Javi Baez drew a walk. That's kind of funny. I don't know. Let's have a good time. I think that's funny. Um, we're gonna, it's funny. Obviously, we haven't done the Javi Baez player preview yet. I've been avoiding it. I just keep pushing it down the road. I was either going to do it first and just get it out of the way so that I could just do it off rip at the end of February, and then everybody would get all mad for an episode, and then we would not, talk about it. But instead, I've chosen the opposite approach, where he might be the last person we do, which I'm not sure is bringing great vibes into opening day. Maybe that's a mistake. Maybe I should do it sooner rather than later. But yeah, that's not going to be pretty. He's had a rough spring. He so far, benefit the doubt to everybody, I guess, but so far looks no different from last season. Yeah, it has not been great. Not been great. So we'll obviously keep an eye on that. The highest paid player now in the Tigers organization. Let's talk just really quickly, Miguel Cabrera around the clubhouse. I think it's cool. That's really all I have to say. Similar to the Job thing yesterday, right? Not too much analysis. Just I think it's cool to see him around. AJ Hinch made a joke where he said that he needs to give Miguel Cabrera a better watch because he was late to his first coaches meeting, which I think is funny, but also that, Miggy kind of is more of a front office role than like an on the field coach kind of thing. But I don't know. I just think it's cool that he's going to be around the guys. They're going to have him work with some of the prospects, which I think is really cool. I am very, very intrigued about this version of Miguel Cabrera. I obviously we all have known him the player for a while. We've known him in the clubhouse for my entire life almost, right? Most of my life, and now to see him transition into this role, like how is he going to be in terms of mentoring young players? Is he going to be tactical and help people with mechanics and whatnot, or is he just going to be kind of like a vibes guy? Like I don't really know. I don't know what to expect too much out of Miggy in this front office, technically speaking, this front office role, special assistant, right? So we will see, but I'm really, really excited that he's here. I'm pumped he's around. And like I said, I'm really intrigued about what the early returns are going to be on him in this role. And especially during the regular season, how, kind of hands-on, I guess I'll say, is he going to be within the organization? Just questions that I have. So cool to see him back there. Hair is looking great, by the way. Yeah, the big fella. He might be in the best shape of his life. He might be. Let's talk Sawyer Gipson-Long. All right, we will do that right after this. We've been talking to y'all all week about our friends over at Prize Picks because football season may be over. Crazy free agency, that is, though. But the action on the floor is heating up, whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court. There's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year, so get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Obviously, with the tournament right around the corner, really, really fun time to get in on all of the action here on Prize Picks. It's going to be bumping. It's going to be a really, really fun time. Caitlin Clark tournament season. We've talked about her all week, but obviously on the men's side of things too, really, really fun. Some really, really good teams over there. So yeah, now is the time kind of to get in on all of the action here. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, everybody, welcome back here. third and final segment. Almost said segment 2. Third and final segment here. Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So, gonna talk today about Sawyer Gipson-Long. Again, going through everybody on the 40 is the goal. And we've done a lot of the major leaguers. Obviously, as I said earlier, Sands, Javi Baez. There's a few more, some fringe guys, right? We haven't done Akil Badu yet, I know. But, there's some minor leaguers, especially, that we have to get to. And Sawyer Gipson-Long is a really, really kind of fascinating conversation just because was so good in September last year. Made 4 starts, 20 innings, had a 2.70 ERA and a 1.1 whip. Phenomenal. We'll get into some of the really fun numbers here in a second, but was worth half a win in just 4 starts, according to Fangraphs WAR. Really fun, crazy good strikeout numbers, really solid walk numbers. Did not give up very many home runs and extra base hits in general. All around just looked really, really stellar. Has a fastball that's about 93 to 94 miles an hour. A really good slider we saw last season. The changeup, I think, is what impressed people, myself included, the most. And then threw a cutter 1% of the time, a little once in a blue moon thing. I think that's partially just the grip that he has on his four-seamer and sinker and whatnot, but also, as well, throws a sinker a lot more frequently there. So, when you're looking at the very small sample size, obviously not qualifying for league leaders or anything like that, but my goodness, a 174 expected batting average, a 252 expected ERA, which is even lower than his actual ERA. 33.5% chase rate is astronomically high. 35% whiff rate, astronomically high from a starting pitcher. 31.7% K rate. Almost one of every 3 hitters resulted in a strikeout. Ridiculously good stuff. Walk numbers we'll get to in a second. Not awful, but a little bit less than league average. And then, it was, didn't give up hard contact, didn't give up extra base hits, like just everything you could have wanted in a pitcher. He executed extremely well. And a big reason for that was the success of his secondary pitches. Again, we already talked about the changeup. 176 batting average against and a whopping 50% whiff rate. And that is one pitch with a 50% whiff rate. Half of the times the changeup was offered at, it was a swing and miss. That is absolutely absurd. The expected batting average on it was actually 0.99. I could go on and on. It was a lethal, incredible pitch. The slider, really good as well. Whiff rate over 40% on that one. Really, really high. That one was hit a little bit more, put in play a little bit. Had a couple of extra base hits against it. But again, for the most part, another pretty darn effective pitch. The big thing for me, and I guess this is not a very long preview because he was so good in the short sample size we saw him at the major league level, but I can talk on what I would like him to work on in the minors and then his role on the team this year. I just obviously keep refining changeup slider. If those 2 pitches continue to look how they did, the slider could use a little bit more work. I think some of that sequencing, and I think a lot of that is establishing a fastball. I'm not saying he has to raise the velo on the heater a lot, and his numbers against the fastball were really good. But I think better fastball command and just a more kind of reliable pitch, I guess, is the word that I would choose rather. If you're going to throw that thing 43 of almost 50% of the time, like he did last year, was 43%, then I think that I would want that to be a little bit more of a dynamic fastball. Again, not asking you to throw 98. I don't expect I don't expect a velo jump really at all. I'm fine with you throwing 93, 94. But just, refining it, again, make it a little bit more effective, maybe work on the command a little bit with it. That was just like a small thing that was somewhat noticeable last year at times. Also at times it was really good. Again, the numbers on it continue to be really solid as well. But I think that that's something. And then the really only other big thing is just the difference between righties and lefties. Against righties last year, he had a 154 batting average and a 463 OPS. Against against lefties hit almost 230 with an OPS of almost 800 again. So obviously night and day, massive difference there. Only give up 2 homers all year. Both of them were to lefties, et cetera, et cetera. So as a right-handed pitcher, you want to have that is kind of the biggest thing that I want him to work on is becoming more effective against lefties. That fastball that was so effective against righties wasn't nearly as effective against lefties. The slider, tougher to consistently throw a slider in general as a righty against lefties at the major league level. The changeup, really, really good pitch no matter what. So that is his friend. I would encourage him to throw the changeup a lot against lefties. It's a really good pitch, and that's kind of what it's there for when you have an opposite hand platoon situation. So yeah, and then I mean, if you really want to get nitpicky, he could keep the ball on the ground a little bit more. I think that all of his stuff kind of plays to be more of a swing and miss and fly ball type of pitcher than a big ground ball guy, but he does have the sinker in there. If he were to throw that more, he doesn't really throw it to lefties at all, but if he were to throw that more, period, then maybe you can find a pitch that that can keep the ball on the ground a little bit more if you're not looking to get a swing and miss or a strikeout in a certain count or whatnot. But I don't have too much to say. Like, I'm getting super nitpicky here. This was a really, really good performance or stretch here. The biggest thing for him is he's going to start off the season in the minors, right? He should, right? I know he looked amazing, but that's 20 innings in your first stint in the majors. I think that the biggest thing for him is going to be refine all of his stuff. Obviously, stay healthy. You can say that about anybody, though. Refine everything. Get more comfortable going deeper and deeper into ball games. Really stretch it out so that going into the 6th or later is not a big issue. And that's something that he has the luxury of in AAA to have a lot of time to work on. So because he's going to be, especially if Olson or Mize start of the season in the minors, he's probably going to be, second or even third on the pecking order in terms of if a starting pitcher injury happens, excuse me, who gets called up. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have. Just work on going deeper into games, continue to refine the fastball, and improve against lefties. That's kind of the extent of the analysis. Again, not a ton of tape at the major league level, at least based on last season. So I'm really excited about him. I'm so encouraged by what we saw out of him in September. I think it's impossible not to be. I think that there is a reality in which this kid is pitching in the starting rotation at some point in the future. Obviously, he will start a game. I'm pretty confident in that, assuming health at some point this season. As we've said about a lot of these guys that may start off in Toledo, injuries are going to happen. Openings are gonna open, and he's going to get an opportunity there. So, yeah, and something that I forget who commented it, but somebody commented on it yesterday that I just didn't bring up was the roster battle between Mize and Olson. I had it written down. Full transparency, that was the second time I had recorded yesterday's episode because I was in the post-production process and doing my editing and whatnot, and honestly just like didn't feel like the episode that I originally recorded was at like the standard of what I wanted to put out to the world. So I redid it completely. And apparently, in the second time through, just completely didn't bring up the roster battle between Mize and Olson. So my apologies there. Kind of can piggyback off of Sawyer Gipson-Long not in that conversation, but that rotation spot is going to be, I don't think Manning's a part of it. Some people do. Some people think it's 3 pitchers fighting for 2 spots and Manning's in the mix too. I think Manning's making this roster. I think it's between Olson and Mize, and whichever one isn't there, it sounds like is going to be a starter in Toledo to start off the year next to Sawyer Gipson-Long, which is why I say he's not going to be the first call, but he may be the second if a starting pitcher goes down in the regular season. Again, I assure you we'll see him at some point this year. Really just looking forward to him continuing to tweak that heater and yeah, improving against lefties, stretching out deeper into games. I've already said all that. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Was that my intro? That's cool. We'll be back tomorrow. I think that's everything. Yeah. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.